Hello, this is Eric from Jarhead Paracord, and one of the comments or questions that I've had on some of my videos is, when are you going to do an instructional video on your hidden ball whip? So this video is going to show you the steps that I do in making the hidden ball Jarhead Paracord whip. Now, when you compare it to the standard whip that I make, by hidden ball, it's not really hidden as much as it is lower ends covering the ball so that the ball isn't as exposed. And you'll notice that basically what it is a series of square crown sinnet knots that just increase from 4 strand to 8 strand to 12 strand to 16 strand, and continues on from there. Usually when I'm making these, it'll end up being somewhere between 16 and 20 strands. Beyond that, you'll start to lose some of the symmetry, and ultimately just keeping the individual rows in line. The one that I'm holding is orange and black. The one that I'm going to be making in the video will be a combination of white and black. So basically what I've started out with is my 4-strand monkey's fist. Obviously it's a two strand that I fed the additional strand through, making it a 4-strand. What I've done is I've cut 2 lengths of paracord, each one roughly 5 feet. And what I'm going to do is find the center of both. Now that I've got the center, I'm just going to make a T or a cross. And what you're basically going to do here is just start out same way that you'd make the square crown sinnet. If you pulled that tight, that's how it's going to start. And I'll do that one more time. Find the center, make the cross. I start from the top, bring it over the right, from the right bring it over the one that came down and over the lower, the one from below, fold it over so that it crosses the one that you just brought over plus the left one, and then the last one, same process with the right. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is loosen that up, and what I want to do is find a center in there, and within that what I'll do is bring the ball through. Once the ball and the 4 strands are through, you're just going to tighten that up. I'll usually leave somewhere around 5 or 6 inches as I go through this process, because as long as this stays in the center, it'll take some effort, but you will be able to pull it up. All right, so now as you can see, we have a four strand square crown sinnet knot. From here, unlike my other whips where they'll start working up, this one will work down. And in the when you first start doing it, you know, the ball's going to get in the way. You just have to work around it. You know, figure it out. All right, now that we're situated, we're basically just going to continue the square pattern. And remember that the square pattern is ultimately just a stacked knot. We'll do one more. And that's how you start the triangular cone. What we're going to do next is change it from a 4 to an 8 strand knot. All right, so one of the questions another question that I'm often asked is, how long are each of the pieces that you're using? And to be honest with you, it's a difficult question for me, because I only really measure the first piece of something that I'm doing new. Everything else from that point is basically matching length. And what I mean by that is these two pieces started out at 5 feet, and all I'm going to do is grab my next color, measure half the length, fold it over, and that's the second. What I've never done is measured this, because again, I'm making it to match. But if you started out with 2 5-foot pieces, and with the little amount at the front part that you made more 5-foot pieces, you know, you're not wasting you know, that much cord. But it's just something that you're going to have to estimate. So I've made one. Now I'll make the second. And I'm just going to burn or melt these ends. You know, one of the things I did see recently was a paracord cutter that used heat and a sharp edge to cut and seam or cut and seal, cut and melt the pieces. They've been retailing for about $75 to $80. I just don't know that I'm cutting pieces often enough that I could personally justify the purchase, but you know, maybe someday. So now we have a 4. We're going to go to an 8. So what we're going to do, keeping it loose, is start our square crown knot, and then what we're going to do is feed in those pieces to go from 4 to 8. So at this point, what I'm going to do is tighten the knot. Then I'll adjust for center. All right, and I'll center my pieces. To adjust, and before I make the first pass, just going to make sure that everything's tight. As you'll know from watching my other videos, I can't stress enough being tight with the knots. Alright, so now what you're going to do is just continue the process. Alright, looks like I messed that one up. Alright, let's try that. Try that again. There we go. And the big thing from this point is just keeping the individual strands in their respective position. So you notice that black is on the outside, white on the inside. Obviously, if you're doing this in the same color, it's not going to matter as much from a color perspective, but where you'll see the difference will be just the overall appearance of the knot. So that was one pass. I'll make a second one, and then for the third pass, I will incorporate the next color. When I said early on that it's a little awkward working around the ball, you can see that after the second pass, it's a little bit easier because you've now gotten it started and you're seeing the pattern take shape. So just be patient with it. It does take some practice. All right, so now we've completed the 8 strand, and we're going to go from 8 strands to 12. And how we're going to do that is the same process. We're going to go back to the black, and again, I don't measure this, I just cut it to match. All right, now we're ready to go from 8 to 12. All right, so as we did before, when we kept the first one loose, we're going to do the same. And then we'll grab the first strand, run it through, and when you do it, that strand will always be on the inside. All right, we're going to tighten this. And then we'll take the inside pieces Make sure that they're centered. And then before we go on to the next one, we'll go through one more time and just make sure that everything's tight. The one thing you want to try not to do is pull on that new strand. You want to focus on the two that are already locked in, because if you pull on this one, it's just going to get it off center. So again, just focus on the outside two. All right, and then we just continue the same process with 3. In here, as you tighten, just make sure that your pattern and positioning stays lined up. And this is also a time that you might notice that you'll need to pull on some of the lines individually in order to get them to tighten as well. You know, don't be afraid to take your time with this. If you don't like the way that it looks, start redoing it, go back. Because done right, these whips will last a long, long time. So that was the first pass. We're going to go a second. And then after the second one, we'll go from a 12 to a 16. And in fact, in looking at it, with the way it's turning out, I think I'm actually going to at this level go for a third pass, and then incorporate the next one the next strands on the fourth pass instead of the third. You know, they just ultimately depend on whether you want the cone to be longer, shorter. Again, these are custom. No two are made exactly the same. There's no rule book. Be creative. All right, so here we are. Now what we're going to do is go from 12 to 16. In order to do that, I'm going to do the same measuring, and we'll go from there. All right, so I've already cut my pieces to length. We're going to make that loose path. And you'll start to notice that on this pass right here, it'll start to get a little bit more difficult to keep the strands aligned, and you just need to be patient. So I'm just going to line them up. Same thing as the last pass, try to stay away from the new strand when tightening. And then we'll adjust for center. And then we'll tighten this up. All right, now we'll make the first 16 strand pass. And again, before you tighten them up, just make sure all your lines are straight and you're keeping your pattern. So this one got a little out. As I said before, on some of them you might have to pull individually. We'll make another pass. And just work on keeping your pattern. You'll notice that it started to bump out. As you tighten it up, you can get that line back up. All right, that's the second pass. We'll do a third. Alright, and that's how we're taking shape. You know, from here you ultimately decide whether or not you want to do a fourth pass. If you want to go from 16 to 20 strands, or if you want to finish with your diamond knot. Choice is up to you. Alright, I decided to add the fifth piece. Now we're going to close it in with the diamond knot. And how I do these is the same, start off the same way as if I was going to add another strand, just leaving the center open and loose, and then you take one side and you roll it over to the next piece, go around that, and then through the opening you grab the one you just went through, come over around the next, through the opening, around the next, through the opening, and then those last 5 strands around and then through. And then before I tighten that up, I'm going to grab those strands, give it a pull, alright, that's in there tight. And you'll notice that while you're doing this, you're just going to start pulling these individual strands and what you want to do is just work your way around. Tighten these pieces up. Strand by strand. Where are you? There you are. You know, and that's ultimately the start of it. But what you're going to do now is just go through individually, rework these until you get the pattern back, spreading these pieces, these strands around, and that's how you do the Jarhead Paracord hidden ball. Yeah. If you have any questions, comments, let me know. You can contact us through our website at jarheadparacord.com, on Facebook at Jarhead Paracord. Drop us a line, send us an email, and thank you much.